Good morning. Good morning to the concluding day of the 53rd Munich Security Conference. We are going to start this Sunday morning with a brief presentation by the Foreign Minister of Iran, then followed by what I think is a rather unprecedented format, namely a kind of a congressional debate, a U.S. congressional debate between members of the U.S. Senate, led and moderated by Jane Harman, who is a member of our advisory council and a very, very long-term friend and supporter of this conference. Now, to get us started this morning, I would like to invite Foreign Minister Zarif to speak to us. He has been the foreign minister of his country since 2013. Before that, he served with distinction, as many of you know, as the Perm Rep at the United Nations. He is a distinguished academic. He knows everything about what we call colloquially the Iran deal, the nuclear deal, and I expect that some of you will have questions. Now, since we have to run a very tight ship this morning. We have less than 20 minutes for this. Minister Zarif will speak to us rather briefly, and then we will have time for some questions. So if you want to ask a question, fill out a little card, if you can, and we'll collect some questions to get us through this as quickly and with the utmost efficiency possible. Now, without further ado, Minister Zarif, please address the audience. Good morning.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We need that in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. We need both the compassion and the mercy these days. Good morning to all of you, and it's a great pleasure. It's a change this year. I'm reading from a script. It's a great pleasure to be here again and to share with you some thoughts about the ongoing transition in the post-Western global order and its implications for our region in West Asia. I believe that it is urgently needed today. What we need is a cognitive transition commensurate with the realities of the global transition, realities that have challenged the zero-sum perspective and approach, overwhelmed global as well as regional hegemonic aspirations, and undermined convenient framings, and I cannot avoid it, alternative facts. In other words, we all need to realize that in a globalized world, achieving security at the expense of insecurity of others is unrealistic and even an absurd proposition. That in a world where security actors have multiplied and where non-state actors have gained a significant, albeit mostly negative, place at the global security arena, no single power, however disproportionately powerful, or even a concert of major powers, can address global or regional challenges by excluding or blaming others. And that while misperceptions, misrepresentations, and erroneous assumptions may temporarily diffuse domestic anxieties, they do not help the actual resolution of the crises we find ourselves in. From this perspective, the nightmare of extremist violence and terror in West Asia is neither solely the product of the dynamics in this region, nor can they be confined, as we have all seen, within the region. And there is plenty of blame to go around. It is easy for us in West Asia to blame the West as the ultimate culprit for our problems. There is no shortage of history here. It has been even more convenient for the West to blame us, Muslims, irrespective of our diversity. Finger-pointing has been the easiest diversion for everybody. In my opinion, the first necessary step in addressing the challenges is to redefine the problem in a way that is conducive to a collective solution. We can already agree that lack of hope has been a central component of the crisis. What binds all those engaged in extremist violence is their sense of being marginalized, locally and/or globally, without any hope for inclusion, participation, and most importantly, respect. We can also detect that another rallying ground for extremist recruitment has been the endemic problem of foreign occupation and invasion, starting with Palestine and compounded by the systematic political and military interventions to preserve, perpetuate, and then reshape the regional architecture and hastily usher in a self-acclaimed new world order. As for the internal component of the complex mosaic before us, it is not difficult to observe the failure of the state system in parts of our region in responding to the fundamental demand of the populace for dignity. Let me emphasize here that it is misleading and dangerous for our neighborhood in the region to try to diffuse this dysfunctional internal threat by diverting the anger towards fabricated external enemies. There is also a pseudo-ideological component. For nearly 4 decades, a well-financed global proliferation of Takfiri ideology based on division, hatred, and rejection, which everybody would agree has nothing to do with Islam, has been sold as promoting a so-called moderate Islam to confront an erroneously framed radical Iran. The combination of these factors produced a literally explosive mix. That is, while the emergence of terror groups such as Daesh and Al-Nusra Front and the cycle of totally unprecedented, ruthless, and barbaric violence can be traced back to the foreign military misadventures of early 2000s, the arming and financing of these groups by some states in the region cannot be ignored. They hoped to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. First, divert the existential threat of domestic discontent with the dysfunctional state system, while at the same time, and that is the second bird, hoping to restore the perceived regional disequilibrium, or to go back to the regional equilibrium that existed before the fall of Saddam Hussein. That stone has now boomeranged. I just alluded, ladies and gentlemen, to the regional component of the problem, where I hope a less complicated and more rapid solution might be within reach. The fall of Saddam Hussein and the emergence of a popularly elected government in Iraq produced anxieties in some regional countries regarding that disequilibrium in favor of Iran, a disequilibrium that had to be reversed at all costs. 2 decades earlier, if you remember, similar misplaced anxieties following the Islamic Revolution led some of our neighbors to arm and finance Saddam Hussein to destroy that manufactured enemy. We had hoped that our neighbors would have learned from the fact that the monster they had created ended up as their own nightmare. We all need to break this pattern. In fact, during the Iran-Iraq War, the international community recognized the problem and prescribed a regional security arrangement, enshrining in paragraph 8 of UN Security Council Resolution 598, which ended the Iran-Iraq War, the concept of a regional security arrangement. That provision continues to be relevant and necessary today. Countries in the Persian Gulf region need to surmount the current state of division and tension and instead move in the direction of erecting realistic regional arrangements. It can perhaps start with a modest regional dialogue forum based on generally recognized principles and shared objectives. The forum can promote understanding on a broad spectrum of issues, including confidence and security building measures and combating terrorism, extremism, and sectarianism. It could also encourage practical cooperation in areas ranging from protection of the environment to joint investments and tourism. Such a forum could eventually develop into a more formal non-aggression and security cooperation arrangements. President Rouhani took a major step in this regard last Wednesday by visiting Oman and Kuwait. Ladies and gentlemen, I emphasize that the conflicts in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Bahrain do not have military solutions. Each requires a political solution, where no genuine actor is excluded from the process or marginalized in the outcome. Notwithstanding the complexities of each, there are, I'm confident, always possibilities for eventually arriving at outcomes that meets the minimum requirements of all concerned. To begin this unavoidable journey, we must begin defining problems in a non-zero-sum way. The historic success of diplomacy over coercion in the resolution of the Iranian nuclear crisis reflects a simple but important political lesson. All parties concerned define the problem in a mutually acceptable way so that they could find a solution in a mutually acceptable way. In other words, they recognized that they had to give up their maximalist aspirations and expectations in favor of a working compromise. The challenge, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, is first and foremost cognitive in essence and nature. I hope that world leaders are up to the task. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jawad. And we have a few minutes for questions. Don't hesitate to raise your arms. I see a number of arms going up. One question, and the way we do it is I will read these questions or call on people, and the foreign minister will then sort of respond collectively at the end. That saves us a bit of time. One first question has been given to me via this a card, and I'll read it to you. It comes from Nikita Perfilyev. He is an official with the CTBTO, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization. Question is as follows. CTBT was not part of the JCPOA, but it can serve as a confidence-building measure, and Iran's ratification is required for CTBT entry into force. It will also bring positive momentum to the stalled disarmament progress. Question, is Iran ready to take a leadership role in this regard? Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Okay, next question. We'll start with the gentleman in the back. I think this is Herr Tevis from ZDF, if I see correctly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Foreign Minister Zarif, I was wondering
Please do us a favor, identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Elmar Tevison with ZDF German Television. We had the pleasure to talk last year, I think, in an interview. Foreign Minister Zarif, about this regional dialogue you just proposed, are you willing, or is Iran willing to include Israel in that kind of dialogue?
All right, and then there's a question on the other side of the aisle. Ian Bremer.
Hello, Ken Roth from Human Rights Watch. My question is about Syria. Iran is providing critical military support to the Assad government, and as you're aware, the government has been targeting civilians, repeatedly using chemical weapons, as the UN investigative mission has found. It's been starving civilians, seriously abusing prisoners. What is Iran doing to rein in this targeting of civilians by Assad?
And then maybe the last one, otherwise we'll run out of time. The gentleman here behind the hostelci. Yeah, right there.
Thank you. Josh Rogan, Washington Post. As you know, the Trump administration has, quote unquote, put Iran on notice due to its non-nuclear related activities in the region. They seem to want to de-link this from the ongoing enforcement of the nuclear deal. In the minds of the Iranian government, can these two issues remain separate, or do you intend to link the nuclear agreement to increasing sanctions coming from the US? And very quickly, we know that the Iranian nuclear program is peaceful, but if you were to choose to build a nuclear weapon, exactly how long would it take you from right now? Thank you. Exactly how long would it take you? If you decided to build a nuclear weapon right now, exactly how long would it take? Thank you.
Well, these are all really very easy questions, and I'm sure the foreign minister is happy to offer his responses.
Well, thank you very much for all the questions. On CTBT, Iran has been a member of every international arrangement on non-proliferation and the prevention of weapons of mass destruction. We have yet to receive the benefits of being a member of all those international instruments. International instruments work based on a bargain that is achieved between states and whatever we can call the international community, that for actions that a state decides to take, there are reciprocal measures, reciprocal benefits that they receive from the international community. And for the failure to take those actions, there will be reciprocal cost. Unfortunately, in the current state of international relations, being a member of NPT does not produce any positive outcome for anybody. There are non-members of the NPT who go around talking about Iranian nuclear threat. They pose the greatest nuclear threat to the international community, and they have the audacity to talk about an Iranian nuclear threat where we have every mechanism in place in order to make sure that Iranian nuclear program will always remain peaceful. So we need to strike that bargain, and once that bargain is there, then Iran has nothing to hide, has nothing, because CTBT is applicable where you get to the point that you want to test a nuclear weapon. Not only under NPT, we will never produce nuclear weapons, but under the JCPOA, Iran has committed not to ever seek to develop nuclear weapons. So that is a given. But in order to move one step further and provide an extra level of confidence, we need to receive the reciprocal benefit of the existing situation. And I believe the international community still owes us a great deal. On the regional dialogue, I said that I'm modest. I'm focusing on the Persian Gulf. We have enough problems in this region, so we want to start a dialogue with countries that we call brothers. We call each other brothers in Islam. We need to address the common problems and perceptions that have given rise to anxieties, that have given rise to the level of violence that exists in the region. I'll be happy if we can succeed in this endeavor, and Iran is prepared to engage with all our neighbors in the region, in the Persian Gulf region, in order to address this. On the Syrian conflict, of course, the humanitarian catastrophe that is taking place in Syria is horrendous. It moves everybody. Just looking at the problems, looking at the kids who are being driven from their homes and all the other consequences of this humanitarian catastrophe is a shame for the entire humanity. The use of chemical weapons can never be condoned. Violations of the laws of war can never be justified under any pretext. And Iran was the first to condemn the use of chemical weapons by whoever commits it. Unfortunately, while we made some progress and Iran participated and played a significant role in achieving the chemical disarmament in Syria, unfortunately, the terrorist organizations, Nusra and Daesh, still possess chemical weapons, and it is important for the entire international community. And we have seen even reports by the United States confirming that these terrorist organizations have resorted to the use of chemical weapons. It is important that we address that question, as we have in the past addressed the question of the use of chemical weapons and the need for its destruction. On threats, I tweeted already because tweet is now fashionable. So that it is, isn't it? That Iran is unmoved by threats. Iran responds very well to respect. We don't respond well to threats. And everybody tested us for many years. All threats and coercions were imposed on Iran. You remember the concept of crippling sanctions? The crippling sanctions produced a net total of 19,800 centrifuges. Because when those crippling sanctions were imposed on Iran, we had less than 200 centrifuges. When the United States came to the negotiating table, we had 20,000 centrifuges. And the objective of those crippling sanctions was to push Iran to have 0 centrifuges. So Iran doesn't respond well to threats. We don't respond well to coercion. We don't respond well to sanctions. But we respond very well to mutual respect. We respond very well to arrangements to reach mutually acceptable scenarios, as we did with JCPOA. And I think that's a lesson that history has taught all of us. We are not going to produce nuclear weapons, period. So it will take forever for Iran to produce nuclear weapons. People will be happy saying that they have extended breakout capability to 1 year. But let them be happy, and I'm happy that they're happy. But I'm making a very simple statement. We believe that nuclear weapons do not augment our security, nor do they augment anybody's security. I believe the 6 secretaries of state and national security advisors who wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post, or Wall Street Journal, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. In the Wall Street Journal saying that the time has come to rid the world of all nuclear weapons were right. It's now the time to start destroying everybody's nuclear weapon and not thinking about somebody else joining the club, because that is not a very safe club.
Thank you very much, Minister. Before concluding the session, let me remind all of you that after the congressional debate, the entire rest of the morning will be devoted to the issues of the region. We will have voices from Israel, from Saudi Arabia, from Turkey, and we will have a comprehensive debate in the second half of the morning, specifically on the future of the Syrian negotiations. So stay tuned, so to speak. Mohammad Zarif, thank you very, very much for joining us again and for speaking to us. Thank you so much. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you very much.